HPD officers honor one of their own with a motorcade escort. A long line of police units with flashing lights accompanied the ambulance carrying the body of Tactical Flight Officer Jason Knox to a Northwest Houston funeral home. Officer Knox died over the weekend after the helicopter he was in crashed. Rekha Mudaraj has a look at how Officer Knox will be remembered.
Just 2 days before his untimely death, Officer Jason Knox was part of a birthday car parade for one of his fellow officers. This morning, though, people were paying their respects along a procession route for him as Officer Knox's body was taken to a funeral home in Northwest Houston. His remains were carried in a Cy-Fair ambulance. His wife is a dispatcher with that department, and he worked there as a volunteer firefighter for 3 years. Early Saturday morning, he and another officer were answering a call in the Greens Point area when something went wrong with the aircraft and their helicopter crashed into a building. Since his death, many remember Officer Knox as a person with a heart of gold. He was a husband and a father to 2 young children. He was also a car buff. He used to fix up 1990s police cruisers and would take them to parades and community events. The other officer on board, the pilot, Chase Cormier, is still in the hospital. He is recovering from a broken back. And we're told that Officer Cormier's condition is improving. In the meantime, this crash is still under investigation. Thankfully, no one else was hurt, including anyone inside that building, that leasing office that the helicopter crashed into. And of course, KHOU is offering our thoughts and our condolences to both of the families involved.